I know what you're thinking. Healing is impossible for me. It might work for you, but it doesn't for me. Maybe you're struggling with chronic pain, chronic fatigue, chronic symptoms, anxiety, depression, overwhelm, lack of sleep. And you've just accepted that you're just going to live with this for the rest of your life. That was me. And in my case, things were really dire. I was literally on my deathbed, 50 different diagnoses, close to 100 symptoms. Some of the top most debilitating symptoms have to be vestibular stuff, so constant dizziness, 8 years of vertigo, swaying, rocking, POTS. I had extreme postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, so I would faint even just by sitting up. My brain couldn't pump blood or oxygen to my brain. I had small fiber neuropathy, which was officially diagnosed with a skin punch biopsy and told that it would only get worse. Pre-diabetes, chronic daily migraine, 25 plus migraines a month, gastroparesis, GI stuff, crazy, crazy brain fog, agoraphobia, panic attacks, anxiety, allergies, intolerances, heat intolerance. Gosh, so much. And I'm not going to list everything because I probably already have your attention. But what I want to share with you today are some of the things that didn't work. Some of the things that actually kept me stuck in this loop of searching for healing, stuck in chronic survival, and some of the things that helped. So let's start. What didn't work? I'm going to list these. And if you're listening, I want you to take note. Don't judge yourself. If you're doing any of these things, this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but if any of this resonates, then you're in the right place. Let's begin. Trying to fix myself. I thought I was broken, constantly trying to fix something, trying to get rid of something, the symptoms, the emotions, the sensations, the thoughts, the beliefs, always in fix-it mode. Another one is doing this alone, constantly doing this alone. So thinking that nobody can really help me. I am going to figure this out on my own. I'm going to be my own superhero. I don't need to lean on anyone else. I am hyper independent. This is how I was in my life prior to chronic illness. I'm a burden to everyone, so I'm just going to do this alone. That's number 2. Number 3, identifying with my diagnoses. They became who I was. So they became my identity. It was who I was. I operated from them. Every thought I made was from that blending of my identity, all my diagnoses literally became who I was. Every word I spoke came from that place of identifying with sickness. Every choice I made came from that place of acceptance of this is who I am and nothing will ever change. And so there was this huge, huge confusion with my identity at that point. And of course, being in all the chronic illness groups, nicknaming myself POTS girl or, whatever it was, dysautonomia girl. Again, all the identifying with the diagnoses. Number 4, Googling all day. Trying to search and search and search. If I had AI and ChatGPT back then, I probably would have been on it all day long, constantly Googling my symptoms. What could it be? And I'm not saying that we can't get answers, but I think there can be allotted times for this. Meaning you can set boundaries and office hours to Google your symptoms if you are thinking that you want to research something. But what I'm saying is that if you're on it constantly, it's really only reinforcing survival and that story that says something's wrong. And number 5 is talking about my symptoms all day. Talking about everything I felt, everything I thought, every sensation I had, constantly talking about them. I was bringing power to them. I just kept saying the labels over and over and over and over again. Number 6, running away from my symptoms and my emotions. So I really, really worked hard to avoid any pain, discomfort, sensation in my body. It was not safe to be in my body. And so I tried to escape constantly. And this was also from this perspective of emotions as well. Emotions were not safe. Anytime one would bubble up to the surface, especially grief, I would run for the hills, or my creative brain would create an awesome and very, very, very effective way of distracting me from these emotions. And it would typically come in the form of a migraine. Now, this goes into avoiding grief in general. So avoiding the grieving process. Many people show up to this process of healing or a program and they're told to elevate their emotional state all day and just think of the joy and the good things and only, align with things that are elevating. But that only made things worse for me, and it probably is for you. So avoiding my grief meant I was avoiding a lot of healing. Number 8, all the protocols and diets that were based in fear. So those did not work. If I was doing a protocol, a diet, some sort of approach, and I was doing it from the place of survival, so coming in with intensity, high stakes, hypervigilance, pushing, forcing, fixing, again, all of this based and rooted in fear, then that protocol was actually only making me worse. And all the doctors, the practitioners, the people that I saw who were trying to, or I thought trying to support me, and maybe they were well-meaning, they all reinforced fear. They all told me what was wrong with me, not what was right. Number 10, trying to do this perfectly. So that perfectionism, that high achieving personality, if you're coming into this work with that, that will also keep you stuck in survival. I was trying to get in every single practice every day, do it perfectly, achieve the results I needed. And all it was doing was reminding my brain that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't good enough, smart enough, successful enough, and reinforcing the story that I wouldn't heal. Another one, approaching this work from a sense of urgency, pressure, high stakes. And again, we've touched on this slightly, but whatever you're doing, whether it's this work or your daily tasks, living life, if you're approaching making breakfast from this place of urgency, pressure, rushing, high stakes, you're reinforcing survival, reinforcing a message of danger. So I was always rushing through life, trying to get things done. I couldn't relax unless everything was done. And again, that fed into this survival response, which kept everything going, this loop of chronic illness. Number 12, setting unrealistic expectations for myself and my healing journey. That only left me disappointed over and over again. I think many of us start off with this idealistic view of healing, what it's going to look like. It's not going to look like anything that you expected it to be. It's going to be a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of in-betweens where nothing's happening. And if you set this expectation for yourself that by 2 months, 6 months, a year, you're going to be at this place, you're setting yourself up for disappointment because it's not going to look like it does. And healing takes as long as it takes. It can't be rushed. It can't be forced. And when we're setting these unrealistic expectations, we're putting pressure on ourselves. And that pressure is only reinforcing survival, telling the brain that we are not safe, that we're in danger, that all of this needs to happen. Now, I'm not saying do not have expectations and goals and dreams, have those, but allow yourself to be pleasantly surprised and just meet yourself in the moment. Number 13, judging myself and beating myself up when symptoms got worse or for even having symptoms or for even being in survival. I was so hard on myself, my own worst enemy, my own biggest critic, because I thought having symptoms meant I was wrong. Something was wrong with me or broken or I had failed. My gosh, the sense of failure that came when I had a flare. Well, all the thoughts followed. Am I doing this wrong? Did I fail at something? Did I make a mistake? Is this not working? And then that would lead me to search incessantly for another program, and which leads me to number 14. Program jumping, skipping and moving from program to program, from modality to modality, from practice to practice, from physician to physician. I was always searching for something and someone outside myself to save me, and it never worked. To be completely honest with you. Another one, number 15, is always staying within my window of tolerance, being very cautious that I don't go out of that window of tolerance because I'm going to get worse or there will be this rebound. I'm going to tell you, I had 2 little kids as I was rewiring my brain and healing, and almost 9 times out of 10, I was outside of my window of tolerance because they needed to be fed. I had responsibilities as a mother, and I really, again, had to do certain things. And as I look back, I recognized that if I didn't have that responsibility, that kind of a push to get out of bed and get things done, I probably would have stayed in bed and I probably wouldn't be here talking to you now. Now, I'm not saying that everybody needs kids or, someone to force them out of bed, but the fear that many of us have around this window of tolerance is actually keeping us really small and closing our world in a sense. Most of us don't know the capacity we have until we are pushed slightly outside of our window of tolerance. Now, I'm not saying go 90 for nothing and go from bed bound to running a marathon. I'm talking about incremental expansions. They're very important and a really, really big factor in healing. Another one, number 16, putting all my power in the hands of practitioners, doctors, healers, and not keeping any for myself. I believed everyone else could heal me and that I couldn't heal, that there was nothing that I could do, that I was powerless, that I was weak, that I had failed in some way. And I really expected someone to come and save me. Well, it was a big wake-up call when everyone outside myself had failed me. Everyone but God. And that's a story for another time, which brings me to my last one, believing that God was punishing me and making me sick and wanted me to stay sick. That belief, and I have another video on that and I'll link it, that belief kept me stuck for years. And it was only when I started to understand who God was, see him as a loving Father who wanted me well, that things started to shift, that I could surrender some things. And that's really when all this mind body work came into my life. Now, there are so many things that I could share about what did help. And that could be a whole podcast episode, but I'm briefly going to touch on some of the things that were helpful. Of course, number one was believing that God wanted me well, that he was for me, not against me, and doing this with him. So weaving together mind, body, and spirit, because with God, all things are possible and he is the healer. And so I do give all glory to him. I came into my mind body healing journey at the same time that I found faith, that God found me. And so both weaved in so beautifully. And this is an invitation to make your practice your own. It doesn't have to look exactly like anyone else's. Bring in your values, your beliefs, your personality, things that are in alignment with you. Because at the end of the day, this shouldn't feel like a rigid, cold practice. It should feel in alignment with your life. It actually shouldn't feel like a practice at all. It should feel like a way of life. At least that's what I teach. Another one, number 2, is understanding that I wasn't broken. The understanding and awareness piece was huge for me. This revelation that I had just been in survival for so long, for most of my life, and that it wasn't my fault was massive. The truth was I had spent, again, years in chronic survival, and this led to the disease in my mind and body. And it wasn't any particular event's fault. It was a multitude of things coming together all at once to create perfect storm after perfect storm to get me to a place where I was completely bedbound and on my deathbed. And understanding this was powerful. I wasn't broken. I was in survival. And the revelation that as I moved out of survival and into safety, which was possible for me and everyone else, healing would happen. Number 3, I stopped trying to fix my symptoms. And instead, I focused on coming out of survival by bringing in supports and cultivating safety, because healing is the byproduct of safety. And this is going to look different for everyone. I'm telling you, there are many pathways to safety, many pathways to safety. And if someone is out there trying to sell you that their way is the only way, that's a big red flag. Caution. I'm telling you that there are many ways to cultivate safety in your mind and body. And some of the ways that I did that personally were through different supports. Obviously, God is my safety. Jesus is my savior and my safety. So my relationship with God was paramount and foundational. I also loved bringing in visualization. Visualization gave me temporary reprieve from the hell I was living in. It primed my brain and body for new experiences, new emotional states. It helped me believe in healing and remember what a normal life, a normal body felt like. Visualization also deepened my relationship with God because I would envision scripture coming to life and walking alongside Jesus, even being healed by Jesus. And so visualization was a really key and probably one of the first things that I dabbled in the mind, body, spirit world. Another one is my language, changing my language. This is pillar number one for my clients. We want to be cautious and cognizant of how we speak because life and death are in the power of the tongue. And we can either speak life over ourselves and our situations, or we can speak death, sickness. And so I got rid of all sickness talk out of my household, my entire family. No one would mention my labels, my diagnoses. The only time I would use them was if I had to go to a doctor's appointment for anything. But what I did is I created a brand new alphabet and lexicon, whatever you call it, where I took every diagnosis and I gave it an unrelated word. I used fruit. So for every symptom I had, there was a corresponding fruit. And I gave this list to my family. And if there was a day where I had many symptoms, my kids knew, Mommy's having a fruit salad today. And to this day, we still use these same words to describe things. For instance, melon was always migraine, stomach, GI stuff was raspberries, pain was bananas, and so on and so forth. Now, language was powerful. That really simple shift made all the difference. Some other resources that I found extremely helpful were somatic supports. I had never felt safe in my body. In fact, I was never in my body, always trying to escape it. If you know, you know. And somatic supports and practices help me to slow down and slowly access this sense of embodiment, being here now. It helped me build capacity to be with sensation, to be with emotion, to be in the experience. And this was very slow. I incrementally cultivated safety with all of this. I mean, it started with seconds at a time in my body because in the beginning, my body did not feel safe. Now, I just want to be here. I have no desire to escape no matter what's going on in my life. And my body is a safe haven. It's where I connect with the present. It's where God lives and it is safety. Another one was tapping, EFT tapping and belief work. This was so hugely helpful for me to identify the limiting beliefs that I held, the stories of survival looping in my brain, and the programs that were running the show, essentially. If you're not aware of them, now's your chance. This would be a really good opportunity to start getting curious as to what the stories are. And the easiest way to really bring them to awareness is to simply journal. Ask yourself those questions. What do I believe about myself, about my healing journey, about the situation? And then ask yourself, what do you want to believe instead? So I did tapping regularly. I identified the stories that would show up in my life weekly. I would create a tapping script and I would release and let these go. And it really, really, really changed my perspective on so much. We're talking completely new stories. And I used scripture as well as my new beliefs and new stories. Everything was biblical and it was pretty amazing. And it still is something I still do today. Another one is the deeper inner work. And by this, I mean parts work. So understanding my inner world and of course, a lot of compassion, bringing in compassion and grace upon grace. So in all parts work, again, you don't need a degree in parts work to get into it, but it started with just noticing the parts of me that were showing up at different points in my healing journey and getting to understand them, to also introduce them to the supports I have now, to let them know that time has passed, to help them understand that we're safe now, to introduce them to Jesus. So parts work was really big for me. And of course, grief work, the inner work of grief. I discovered that grieving was healing and that the emotions that I avoided were actually the ones that regulated me most. And I say this with all honesty. Grieving is healing, emotions are regulating, and it's in the feeling that you find yourself. So, again, doing things that are supportive of emotional release, somatic work, journaling, all sorts of things. And of course, allowing sensations, allowing emotions, allowing the thoughts to be there, also allowing support, allowing compassion, allowing joy, doing things that were in alignment also with my true self. And finally, living as I heal and healing as I live. That was one of the most important realizations that I had to come to in my healing journey, and one that I share over and over again in my membership with my members. We are meant to live as we heal and heal as we live. We don't need to put our lives on hold to heal. We don't need to be stuck doing our practices all day long because we need to get them in or else we're not going to heal. The living is part of the healing. And yes, I know, I get it. It's hard to do when you're confined to a bed, but I'm telling you, you can start there. And I have another video all on that, and I'll link that below as well. But here's just a little taste of what my philosophy is, some of the things I've learned, and all the things that I teach in my membership Haven, which is now on School. We have an amazing community that's so supportive. I'm in there daily answering questions. We have weekly classes, and the amount of resources in there that can support you are incredible. So if you want to learn more, again, check out the description below. Please like, subscribe, share this with someone that you think can benefit. And I appreciate you for being here. Let me know what you think.